welcome to this edition of the Gunshine State, where we talk about firearms, firearms policy, politics, culture, media, you name it, all from the great state of Florida. So please take a moment, like and share the program so that your friends can know where the conversation is taking place. Also, if you haven't already done so, please make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And in the case of YouTube and Facebook, make sure you hit that notification button. That way you'll be notified as soon as we go live, and you can participate in the live chat as the program is taking place. Also want to encourage you, please, if you haven't already done so, please become a member of Florida Carry. We are a membership organization. We are fighting for your right to keep and bear arms in the state of Florida. But folks, we can only be successful if we have you behind us. So do me a favor, click on the join link in the description to this video, and there are many different levels in which you can join and become a part of the fight. Folks, if you are not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. Don't be a part of the problem. So become a member of Florida Carry. All right, you guys all know the weekend of March 19th, we have our annual camping event coming along where we're going to, this year in particular, though, we're going to have speakers coming from all over the country to talk about the right to keep and bear arms and how things are going both nationally as well as in the state of Florida. We're going to have folks from all over the country and folks from Florida. We're also going to have folks who are going to be talking, we're going to have trainers, we're going to have attorneys, we're going to have media advocates, authors, all sorts of folks are going to be coming. And folks, let me tell you something. They haven't been able to speak anywhere. So these are all folks who are hyped. They've got a lot of really good stuff, and they're going to be excited to talk to you about what's going on. So now the camping event, now I'm not sure if there's any camping spots left available, so you're going to want to check that out. From the 19th to the 21st, we're going to be camping. And then speakers, matter of fact, most of the speakers are going to be participating in the camping event as well. But then at Runaway Campers on the 20th, all right, Runaway Campers on the 20th is going to be a speaking event. And all the speakers are going to be speaking. We're going to be speaking all day long, talking about a bunch of different stuff. Folks, you're not going to want to miss this. So do me a favor. Just click on the link in the description of this video, the event link, and it'll tell you all that you need to know in order to make sure that you're there. Now, one of the speakers that's going to be there is the author of Good Gun, Bad Guy 1, 2, and 3. All right. He is an author, speaker, hosts a podcast, does a bunch of different stuff talking about advocating for the Second Amendment, helping us understand the mindset of those who would fight against our fundamental right to keep and bear arms. So I wanted to bring him on the program to kind of talk about the state of gun rights in these United States. And with that, let us welcome to the program, Mr. Dan Was. Dan, welcome to the program.
Hey, Craig, it's great to be talking with you. I haven't talked to you in a little while, and so thanks for having me on the show.
It's been a little bit. So before we get started, do me a favor and kind of let the audience know a little bit about your books and about what you have in those.
Well, Good Gun, Bad Guy is a 3-book series, and I expect it to grow. Primarily, what I talk about in Good Gun, Bad Guy is the strategies and the tactics of the anti-gun left and what they do to convince people of things and fear guns and all the propaganda and the misleading information that we see in our politics and mainstream media and from the anti-gunners. So Good Gun, Bad Guy was written primarily to talk about and expose the anti-gun left, the way they think, why we have such a battle with them over gun rights. And then Good Gun, Bad Guy 2 gets more into the politics behind it. I'm sorry, Good Gun, Bad Guy 2 is more about the media's involvement. Good Gun, Bad Guy 3 talks about the politics. So Good Gun, Bad Guy 3, if you don't mind me showing a copy of the book, it's right here. And look at that beautiful gun, huh? Is that something or what? But this is Good Gun, Bad Guy 3. And if people want to get a chance to take a look at it, you can find it at goodgunbadguy.net.
Excellent, sir. Excellent. So obviously, book number 3 is talking about the politics of it, and it couldn't be any more relevant than where we are right now. If you could just consider how politics, quite frankly, have changed in the last year. I mean, we're talking, a year ago this time, Joe Biden was a joke as a candidate. He hadn't won a primary yet. Kamala Harris had already dropped out of the race because she couldn't get anybody in her own party to support her for president. Now, fast forward a year. Oh, by the way, the economy was humming along, and it almost seemed like the reelection of President Trump was inevitable. Enter COVID, enter George Floyd, enter the 2020 elections, and all of the stuff that's gone along with that, all of the riots and all of that stuff. Things are significantly different, and they're going to have an impact on gun owners. So, what are some of the immediate things you think we ought to be on alert for as gun owners?
Well, number one, we want to protect that filibuster. And I just did a video on that. People can find, but protecting the filibuster is important because what that does is it keeps that 60% or 60 member in the Senate as the deciding factor. If we get rid of the filibuster, what that means is that Democrats, all they need to push legislation through is a 51% of the vote. And we know that they can do that by strong arming their colleagues, by shaming people, and by doing all their strategies and the things that they do to get legislation to go through. So we need that filibuster. It's important. If we lose the filibuster, I think Joe Biden will push through a lot of legislation that's very anti-gun, including incentives to states to enforce red flag laws, which are a big violation of our constitutional rights. The red flag laws are a violation of due process. There's no due process involved. This is where someone can deem you, and they can be even anonymous in most states, they can deem you a threat or a danger to yourself or society, and a sheriff or judge can sign off and have your guns confiscated without due process, without questioning you, without a court hearing, without anything. So red flag laws are very dangerous. And as a matter of fact, they got a guy named Gary Willis killed. Gary Willis in Maryland showed up at his front door because cops were banging on the door. He didn't know who it was at the time. There was a scuffle at the door, and Gary Willis was shot dead in his doorway. So red flag laws are very dangerous. The left wants them, and they don't care how dangerous they are to good Americans.
If there was one thing that you could tell gun owners or those who are advocates of the Second Amendment that they need to be doing as we go into this next year, what would that be?
Support the groups that support the Second Amendment. We're talking about Gun Owners of America, NRA, Firearms Policy Coalition, the Second Amendment Foundation, and of course the state groups like Florida Carry. These organizations are the ones who are out there on the front lines fighting against this horrible anti-constitutional legislation. So support those groups, become a member of those groups, give them donations, and do whatever you can to help them, because they have to go to court. This stuff is expensive to fight against these tyrants. And one thing, just mention that another thing Joe Biden wants to do is he wants to get rid of the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act, which is the law that helps gun manufacturers from being sued for the actions people take with their products. In other words, if somebody uses a gun to do harm, you can't sue the manufacturer. This is like you can't sue General Motors or Ford Motors for somebody hurting someone in a car accident. It's not the manufacturer's fault. But Joe Biden's administration wants to make the manufacturers accountable, so everyone can come in with an onslaught of lawsuits. And the idea for the left is to put the gun manufacturers out of business.
Well, exactly. They don't care whether or not they win the lawsuits. Keep in mind, they've got billionaires and millionaires on their side that are funding their lawsuits. Right. What their goal is to put these not just manufacturers, but retailers out of business, because they won't be able to afford, whether it's going to be through legal fees or the cost of insurance is going to basically drive them out of business. In fact, probably the cost of insurance is probably going to be the thing that's really going to kill a lot of them, because they're not going to be able to get insurance in order to even be able to stay in business. Their goal, once again, is to put folks out of business, because they realize, look, okay, you may have a right to keep and bear arms, but you don't have a right to sell. You don't have a right to sell it. You don't have a right to ammunition. You don't have a right to manufacture. These are all the things they're thinking. I'm not saying this. I'm saying this is what they're thinking. And so they're realizing that they can't take the Second Amendment, but they can take away everything that helps facilitate your ability to exercise the Second Amendment. So it's important that you guys pay attention to those things. The other thing, when you're talking about supporting the groups, I get all the time from people, well, I'm already a member of this group. Why should I be a member of that group? Or why don't all the gun groups just come together and be one group? And what I always try to explain to them is that all of these organizations are all fighting sometimes on the same front, but oftentimes on different fronts with different expertises and different niches. And so it's important that we support them as they fight on the front lines where they're fighting.
Right. Plus, I like to know that our gun rights organizations are coming at them from all different directions, and not making it easy for these people to try to pass these laws. So they're all important. They all will specify. Some of them will pick up some lawsuits that other ones won't. So they're all important. And that's a great point.
Yeah. So we got a camping event coming up. Looking forward to having you there as a speaker. Have you thought about, have you put together maybe what you think you might want to talk about?
No, not really.
I usually figure out the week of, unless they specifically tell me they have something that they want me to talk about. So
I can promise you this, it will be informative, because a lot of the stuff that I talk about is understanding the anti-gun left. And if we can better understand them and how they think, it'll be easier to defeat them. I understand there's some of them that can be helped. There's a handful that can be helped, but most of them need to be defeated. We don't know how to defeat them yet. And that's the stuff that I talk about. Understanding their psychology is first and foremost. I'll talk about all the stuff. I'll talk about how they're infected with fear of guns and hatred toward gun owners. We'll talk about the fake term gun violence. Gun violence doesn't exist. Everybody knows that, but that's at the core of their anti-gun fear campaign. What we're really talking about is human violence, but they don't want to focus on that because that would shine a spotlight on their failed Democrat policies. So I'm going to talk about all that stuff, and hopefully people will go away with a better understanding and more tools to go out and fight to defend our Second Amendment.
Excellent. So how can folks, once again, how can they follow you, follow the work that you do, as well as obtain your books?
Well, I'm on Facebook as long as they'll keep me. They don't like me very much on Facebook. And so as long as I'm on Facebook, you can find me there. I'll be back on Parler when Parler comes back up, Twitter, LinkedIn. And but primarily I have a show called The Loaded Mic. People can find the web show at loadedmic.com. That's Mike, MIC.com. And also the best place to find me, I'm writing for several publications: Daily Caller, Truth About Guns, Ammo Land, Reactionary Times, several different publications. So I'm always writing, so you can find me on those publications. But most often, the best place is to go to goodgunbadguy.net or goodgunbadguy.com.
Excellent, sir. Thank you so much for coming on the program. Looking forward to seeing you at the camping event.
Can't wait. Thanks, Craig.
I said, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Dan Was. All right, well, hey, that's going to be it for this edition of the Gunshine State. We very much appreciate you tuning in. We appreciate you liking and sharing the program and telling your friends about Florida Carry. We are Florida's premier Second Amendment civil rights advocacy group. Become a member today. I'm your host, Craig DeLuz, and we'll talk to you again real soon.